Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, let's try this again. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Great. Shout out. Hi, my name is Tanesha Dixon, and I am a 7th and 8th grade social studies teacher from DC Public Schools, and I teach at the Wheatley Education Campus, the Jewel of Trinidad. And I am also on the ECET steering committee and also a member of the Teacher Advisory Council. We're honored, we are honored to introduce two amazing teacher leaders who are delivering tonight's leadership stories, or as you know them, the Cultivating a Calling keynote address. And if you've never seen one of these addresses, push your stuff back and get ready to have your socks knocked off. At this time in the evening, we're going to bring back, like I said, the two teachers to share their stories. And these speakers were nominated and chosen by their peers to address you tonight. These keynote addresses are being streamed live across the country, so no swear words, so that any teacher will be able to share in their stories, and you will also be able to go back to your home schools and share them as well. So for the first speaker this evening, it's my pleasure to introduce Dwight Davis, a first-year assistant principal at the Wheatley Education Campus in Washington, D.C. He's also a 2012-2013 Teach Plus Policy Fellow and a City Bridge Education Innovation Fellow. And that basically means he learns a lot about personalized learning and doing what's best for kids, which, as you'll hear, is really his passion. So I have these bullet points, and it says to add additional context. And for the past couple hours, I've been racking my brain trying to find the perfect thing to say about Dwight. And I really couldn't find anything. But I will read the last line of his bio, and I really think it really captures his essence. It says, Dwight believes strongly that through the prodigious power and work of love, children can exceed all limitations and boundaries placed on them through hard work, diligence, and a sincere belief in self, thus being transformed and renewed for service to the community. I can't think of anyone else who really embodies that, and he lives it every day. He is my voice of reason. When I'm a Tasmanian devil at work, he's the one who really calms me down. He is a friend, he is a mentor, and he will really, really inspire you. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dwight Davis.
My name is Dwight Davis, and I'm a Washingtonian. Yeah, shout out. I was born and raised in our nation's capital, the District of Columbia. And being a Washingtonian is great because it gives you prestige, right? Who else can say, I grew up 5 miles from the White House, right? The Washington Monument and the Capitol are just down the street. Dave Chappelle, Allison Hannigan, Marvin Gaye, yeah. They're from where I'm from. And here's my favorite. Yes, he smoked crack. We reelected him as mayor, but hey, he's mayor for life. The prestige. Seriously. I love DC, and I'm here to share with you my story. My mother, she was barely 18 when she had me. And as a result, I was primarily raised by my grandparents in the inner city. My grandmother had 5 children, including my cousin and I. So she and my grandmother basically raised my cousin and I as brothers. And as a child, I had difficulty in school. My problem, I was told, was that I loved the camaraderie of my classmates a little too much. Then again, this was also during a time when collaborative learning structures like turn and talk, turning and talking to your elbow partner, right? It wasn't necessarily embraced as it is today. Discussing how we arrived at a particular answer or discussing our mistakes was seen as cheating. Needless to say, I didn't really feel valued. I really felt invisible. To borrow a term from a dear friend, Gregory C. Ellison, I felt cut dead. I was unacknowledged as a means of punishment for my collaborative nature. Then something very interesting happened. I had this very interesting experience with my intoxicated fifth grade teacher. Yes, intoxicated. I may have been 10, but I knew the signs. Number one, she reeked of alcohol. I smelled the alcohol. She had slurred speech, and she had this way of walking around the classroom that reminded me of the guys who were out there on the corner at night. So each Friday, our school, we had a trivia question that was open to the entire school. And it usually has something to do with math. So on this particular Friday, I said to myself, I said, Self, you're going to answer this question. And about a minute after hearing the question, I walked up to my teacher and I said, I have the answer. What? I have the answer to the question. It's 6. How you get this answer, boy? I'm glad you asked. So when I heard the question, I added the number of people, but it was a trick question. So instead of doing, boy, don't get smart with me. What's your name? Dwight Davis. I sit right over there beside it. Boy, I know who you are. Let me call down to the office. So she calls down to the office, and Miss Johnson. Ms. Johnson, one of my students, Dwight Davis. Boy, I know your name. He said he had an answer to the question. He does he? What does he have? The answer is 6, I said proudly. Well, that sure is correct. Come on down to the office and come claim your prize. Yes! Yes, ma'am. And the teacher looks back at me. She says, boy, you were smart. I'm going to have to move you from that table over here to this table. And it was in this click moment had helped me to understand that although people couldn't always see it, there's greatness that lives in all of us, including me. It was rather ironic that it took an intoxicated fifth grade teacher to see this. But I'm just glad she saw me. She actually saw me. And you all may think that a student's most significant moment in school it happens when they're graduating or when they make honor roll. But this seemingly insignificant moment helped me to see myself in school totally differently. What child or adult doesn't want to have or see or have acknowledged their brilliance? It's in those little click moments, not the grand build-ups when this happens, the little click moments. As we know too well as teachers, the busy day-to-day, life gets crazy, and sometimes we're not readily present to acknowledge these little click moments. But it is in the ordinary day-to-day when these critical moments happen. So let's fast forward. I'm in my 6th year of teaching. You would think that teaching gets easier, right? Not for me. My 5th grade year was the most difficult. I had the class. I had that unique configuration of students that will test even the best teachers' commitment to our beloved profession. This was partly in thanks to Jamia Hampton. Woo! Listen, this 11-year-old pretty much was my co-teacher. Why? She could get any student to do anything she wanted them to do at any point during the day. Case in point, my twins, my beloved twins. She got these two girls to fight each other by telling one of them what the other one said about her mother. She was masterful in her approach. There were times I would just sit back and marvel at her genius. Needless to say, it was a tough year. And despite our gains, I really felt like I failed my students and I failed my parents. I needed to retool, but I didn't know how to retool. A colleague suggested that I attend a professional development on family engagement. I was very skeptical, but I decided to go. And the basic premise of this professional development was that engaging families increased academic performance. That is, students do better when their parents are invested in their educational endeavors. And this, wasn't a new revelation to me. I called parents, they didn't answer the phone. I invited them to school, they didn't come. I wrote meticulous notes on their report cards, right? As far as I was concerned, I was the family engagement king. However, as this PD unfolded, I began to realize that I had to step outside of my comfort zone in order for me to really engage my families. And after the year I had, I was willing to try anything. So I learned the model, and I set up my first home visit. Let me tell you, I was so nervous. My classroom grandmother, Grandma McDonald, well, she's a senior. She comes and she volunteers in our community. So Grandma McDonald and I, we would stand and we would practice. What was school like for you, ma'am? What is one hope and dream that you have for your child? What is one expectation that you have for us? Please come on to our back to school night. We really practiced. And our first home visit, it was a great success. And we left the home visit invigorated. The parents weren't as guarded as they seemed, and they were really interested in learning about us, talking to us, as we were interested in them. So I scheduled another, and then another. And before I knew it, we had 26 home visits completed. But here's the thing. I began to realize some things about myself that made me feel very uncomfortable. I began to realize that despite being a Washingtonian, I had some views about my students and their families that I didn't really realize I had. I began to realize that that parent who you can't get in contact with, she actually loves her children, all of them. The parent who doesn't come to back to school night, who doesn't come to PTA, who doesn't return your phone calls, guess what? She's raising all three of those children by herself, and she has 2 jobs. With each home visit, I was realizing that I had actually done a poor job of engaging my families. Although my students were present, I couldn't see the critical parts of who they were. Although they were present, I did not see what made them uniquely them. And what happened next was a massive pivot. I totally restructured my classrooms based on what I had learned from the home visits. I selected different books based on the stories that the parents told me. Sharon Flake, Walter D. Myers. I chose different texts based on what the students liked. We even organized Saturday field trips. Even though these children lived in the city, Even though the White House was just down the street, they had not gone to the Smithsonian. So I exposed them to the city. And students began to talk more in class. They began to fight less, and they began to excel academically. Parents began to answer the phone on the first ring. And they asked clarifying questions about the homework. They even came to parent-teacher conferences. Students were doing so well that we initiated a reading program initiative, right? So every student who grew over a year, they would be invited to the movies. And I'm happy to say that I had to buy 26 tickets for the movies. For the first time in my 6-year teaching, I had truly seen my students. Even Jamia made a 1.5 years worth of reading growth. And even though she transferred at the end of the school year, she often comes back just to say hi. And just in case you were wondering, she continues to be a master motivator. Since this year, my classroom has become a place of constant innovation and risk-taking. I know it's cliche, and I start each year asking my students' parents the same question: can we schedule a home visit? Because in order to really see our students, we need to really see them, including their parents and their homes. Because it's in that conversation, it's on that field trip, it's during that brave walk up to the front of the class to ask a trivia question that we see the mighty potential that lives inside of every child that we have the privilege of serving. But here's my question: what do you see? Thank you.